Hello, and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're carrying on with our look at Mirrodin, with the third deck, which is Sacrificial Bam, which is, it's just a weird name for a deck, isn't it? So red-black, we can probably guess the theme of the deck from the name. So we have a deck list here, 26 creatures, 8 artifacts, 3 instants, 23 land, mana curve off to the side there. Let's start looking at the cards. So, as you probably guessed from the deck name, it's all about sacrificing, specifically sacrificing artifacts. So we got a few sacrifice outlets here. So Atog, which was the surprise reprint, really, I think, in the set. So 2 mana for a 1/2, sacrifice an artifact, gets +2/+2 to turn. Yep. As you'll see, there's actually plenty of artifacts in this deck that it can just kind of snack on. Yeah. Like back in the day, I don't think this card actually really had much popularity when it was first printed. I think in Antiquities, which is a super old set, but I think it was this block that kind of started bringing it back a little bit, just because there were so many like cheap available artifacts. Because really, like before Mirrodin, artifacts tended to be, at the very least uncommon. You never really saw like common artifacts. Especially kind of like cheap or good ones, really. But yeah, anyway. Let's keep looking at some of these sacrifice outlets. Krark Clan Grunt. That is quite a hard word. Krark Clan Grunt. Oh my word, that is quite a tongue twister. So 3 mana for a 2/2 Goblin Warrior. Sacrifice an artifact to give it +1/+0 and first strike turn to turn. Kind of a weak buff, honestly. It would have been fine, I think, to get +2/+0. As it is, I think it's just it's not a great sacrifice outlet, I don't think. Megatog, however, is one of the rares of the deck. 6 mana for a 3/4. Sacrifice an artifact, it gets +3/+3 and trample on turn to turn, which is like that's a really significantly big buff. And I had this deck and definitely won a few games by just swinging with Megatog and just eating a bunch of artifacts and just turning it into a huge creature that just could not be stopped. That's the kind of the problem with Atog, is that it doesn't gain trample or anything, whereas Megatog, at least it gets trample, so it can benefit them from its increased size. And Pentavus is the other rare in the deck. Pentavus, in my opinion, is super good. So 7 mana. It comes in with 5 +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 1, remove a counter from it, and you make a Pentavite token. And you pay 1, sacrifice a Pentavite, and put a counter back on Pentavus. So yeah, that's I think that's really good. Because sacrificing the Pentavite triggers a bunch of kind of like effects that care when artifacts are destroyed, which we'll see in the next screen. This is really good. It just means he can make kind of chump blockers and then return them back to him like before combat damage is assigned, but they've still done the blocking. So yeah, Pentavus I think is super good. If needed, it can just become a small bunch of a bunch of kind of flying 1/1s if you need that to kind of like win in the air. Yeah, really good. Really like Pentavus, like really good rare for this deck, I think. So as we said, so we have Disciple of the Vault here, who is pretty infamous. So as I was saying with Pentavus, there are effects in the deck that care about artifacts being destroyed. Disciple of the Vault being one of them. So looks so innocent. 1 black mana for a human cleric. 1/1. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from play, you may have an opponent lose 1 life. Now, if you're around at the time of playing Mirrodin, this guy is an absolute nightmare. He's at common as well. He's a 1-drop. He's all upside. It's not just your artifacts; it's any artifacts controlled by anyone. So it's just super good. Goes really well in this deck. You've got so many sacrifice effects, and just even having one of these, it really adds up. Just the life loss. Disciple of Vault, like super good card and really good. There's nearly a full playset in this deck. I think Disciple got banned. I'm like 99% sure it got banned, just because it was so good. It was kind of like the Cauldron Familiar of its day, because it just kept chipping away at people and like with very minimal work to make it do its job. So moving on, so we've got Dross Scorpion, 4 mana for a 3/1. Whenever Dross Scorpion or another artifact creature is put into a graveyard from play, it's like say Pentavite tokens, you can untap an artifact. So you haven't got that many effects, that many artifacts in the deck that care about like being tapped. This is, I know, I think this is like the basis of some really wacky infinite combos, which I won't go into. But yeah, Dross Scorpion. I didn't think much of the card like back in the day, but it has grown on me since. After seeing like what its potential to do. I mean, like anything that lets you untap an artifact for free, or that is related to like kind of an easy trigger to hit, like something dying. Yeah, it's got a lot of potential. Two Mer Retrievers, 2 mana 1/1. When it dies, you get an artifact from your graveyard back into your hand. Obviously, like again, like super good in this deck. You got two of them, so you can just kind of infinitely chain them, which goes sort of well with Dross Scorpion, I suppose. Yeah, really good. Obviously, you want to be sacrificing them, which means they die, and then you get stuff back, so then you can sacrifice more stuff. Yeah, it's good. Two Cathodian is another creature that wants to die. 3 mana for 3/3, which is like really well costed for the time. And when it dies, you get 3 colorless mana. So at the time, mana burn was still a thing. So there was some risk in this, like if you couldn't use that 3 mana at the time. Now this card is just like, it's all upside. Yeah, there's like really no inherent risk with doing this, but yeah, you can do some really interesting plays with it at the time. Yeah, you could sacrifice this and use it kind of like as a ritual effect to power out kind of like an early Pentifus or Megatog or something. So yeah, Cathodian, like again, like really solid card to have in this deck. And then we have, I guess these are going to be like kind of sacrifice fodder, I suppose. So 2 Iron Mer, 2 Leaden Mer. These are just mana Mers, just 1/1s that tap to give colors mana. They're perfectly fine. And then late game, obviously, they're good sacrifice fodder. 3 Goblin Replicas. So 3 mana for a 2/2. You spend 4 and sacrifice it to destroy an artifact. Out of all the replicas, that's the most expensive effect, but because it matters the most in kind of like the Mirrodin environment, the fact that it can destroy artifacts is obviously like a really valuable ability to have compared to, I think the green one destroys enchantments, which like is nowhere near as important as destroying artifacts. But yeah, Goblin Replica is fine. It's just it's just 3 colors for a 2/2. It's perfectly fine and has a useful but expensive ability. Nim Replica, I'm not so hot on. So 3 mana for 3/1. 2 colors, 1 black, sack it to give something -1/-1 turn. I mean, it is still technically like a targeted, essentially like kill spell, but yeah, it's just I just don't think it's as good as Goblin Replica. It's all right. It's okay. It's not dreadful. It's not awful. It doesn't come with any horrible drawbacks. It's fine. On the subject of horrible drawbacks, though, Rust Elemental. So 4 mana for a 4/4 flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice an artifact other than Rust Elemental, and if you can't, you tap Rust Elemental and you lose 4 life. Yeah, not not wonderful in my eyes. I just don't think that drawback is worth a 4 mana a 4 mana flyer. Yeah, this is I think the first card you would have probably taken out. I think what really is the kicker here is that it gets tapped as well if you don't pay the upkeep. Like if it just lost you 4 life, then fine. Like you could use it as kind of like a really as a real like aggressively costed creature, like going, oh well, I'll take 4 life, whatever, but I still get to attacking the other 4/4 fly. The fact it taps itself is honestly really is what makes it bad in my opinion. Yeah, so you would have taken this card out straight away. Yeah. So then we have 2 Necrogen spell bombs and 2 Pyrite spell bombs. The Pyrite spell bomb I think is tied with the Ether spell bomb, the blue one, as like being the best of these these cards this cycle. Because it's shock, which is great, and it comes from a colorless source, which means that it gets around protection from red, which is good. And if you don't want to do 2 damage to something, you can just sack it and draw a card. Necrogen Spellbomb is also pretty cheeky actually, because it's only 1 mana, 1 black mana to sacrifice it. Target player discards a card. It doesn't have the usual. It's not. It's an instant speed. It's instant speed discard because normally discard effects are at sorcery speed. So it doesn't feel horrible that someone's like, oh my, it's my turn, so I draw and immediately like next turn spellbomb, nope, discard a card. Just like, oh, like if I was top decking, that would be I mean, it's your fault for top decking, I suppose. But yeah, the fact that Necrogen spellbomb is instant speed discard is kind of noteworthy, honestly. And then 2 Talisman of Indulgence. Again, this like the Manamers, I think this is a fine card that you get down early to accelerate into your bigger stuff, and then later on you just sack it to one of your many effects. And then we have a few more utility cards here. So Skeleton Shard goes super well in this deck. I kind of wish there was another one, honestly, instead of 2 Rust Elementals, like 2 of these. So Skeleton Shard, 3 mana, so you can pay 3 or 1 black and tap it to return artifact creature from your graveyard back into your hand. That goes well with quite a lot of cards in the deck. Like goes really well with like Cathodian or the Mer Retrievers, or it's just really great. Like even just the like the little mana Mers, this goes really well with, because you can just instantly keep sacrificing them and bringing them back. And I just think Skeleton Shard is really really good. Again, this is like a whole cycle of these shards, and each card's I can't remember what they all do, but I remember this one being, I think, probably the best one, or at least has the most potential, I feel. The blue one is pretty good as well, but what a surprise. The blue aligned artifact is really good. So Nuisance Engine, again, I really wish there'd been another one of these in the deck. So this is like your source of endless munchies for like your Atog and Megatogs and all the things that care about sacrificing artifacts, because just 2 tap creates a 0/1 artifact creature. It's a bit slow, maybe it's a bit expensive, but like the fact that it just constantly keeps churning out little artifact creature tokens is great, I think. 2 irradiates, so 4 mana, type creature -1/-1 till end of turn for every artifact you control. Kind of a little anti-synergy in this deck, honestly, just because you're sacrificing your artifacts most of the time, so you wouldn't necessarily have maybe that many in play for this to kind of hit a high number, but you've got the artifact lands in this deck, so I guess maybe it's okay. I think there could have been slightly better options instead of Irradiate. Shrapnel Blast is excellent. I think for a time this was like one of the best red burn spells available, just because it's fairly cheap. It has an additional cost of sacrificing artifact, but you're in a block with lots of cheap artifacts, so really not that much of a downside. And 5 damage is obviously a really significant chunk. Shrapnel Blast, really, really good, really great card to include in this deck. And then, as I said, there's the artifact lands, so 4 each for Great Furnace and 4 each for Vault of Whispers. These are great. They can obviously be sacrificed to stuff like Megatog or Atog, and when they're sacrificed, obviously they trigger Disciple of the Vault to keep draining away for life. So would be mad if there weren't 2 playsets of these in the deck. So what could have been? So overall, I think the deck is actually pretty solid. It is a deck I owned, and I remember having quite a lot of fun with it. I put Trash for Treasure in here. I honestly think Megatog and Pentifus are like perfectly good rares. Trash for Treasure, I'm not sure, like in retrospect, if it really would really fit in the deck. Because you sacrifice an artifact to get another artifact back. It's not like, I suppose you could use something like Necrogen Spellbomb on yourself to like discard, like Pentavus early on, and then Trash for Treasure it to get it out early, I suppose. But yeah, I Trash for Treasure is a good card. I just, in retrospect, I don't think it would have fit in here. Kind of surprised Moriok Scavenger wasn't in here, at least one of them. It's just Gravedigger, but just for artifact creatures, which is, it is technically, I think, a bit worse than Gravedigger, just because it is only limited to artifact creatures, but, it's got a surprisingly high 3 toughness, so it would have been okay block. The thing is, then, you can't really do anything else with it, I guess, but it's okay. I think it would have found a home here. Again, I think better than Rust Elemental, because the Rust Elemental is really, really quite a weak card in this deck. Bosch, I thought, could have been like another rare, maybe instead of Megatog, maybe, or instead of Pentavus. So he's just a massive 6/7 trample, and he sacrifices artifacts to throw them at people, and do damage each of the mana value. So Bosch, I think, could have been a fine rare to have instead of either Megatog or Pentavus. And Hematite Golem, I would actually prefer this instead of Rust Elemental, just because it's on the same curve. It's still 4 mana. 4 toughness makes it a fairly good blocker, and it has like a fire breathing ability, which is okay as well. So I think those are some cards that could have gone in here. But overall, I do think the deck is put together pretty well. Yeah, I say, yeah, this obviously still isn't as good as Bait and Bludgeon. I think that's definitely by far the best deck in the Mirrodin set, not the Mirrodin block. Maybe the Mirrodin block. Well, we'll see when we look at the others in Darksteel and Fifth Dawn. But yeah, this one is pretty strong. I definitely I did have it, and yeah, it definitely felt really good to play and get all the extra damage from Disciple of the Vault, and throw out Shrapnel Blast second turn, and yeah, it was really good. But what did you think of the deck after seeing the deck list? And yeah, did you have this deck? Did you play with it? Did you what changes did you made with it? I would really like to know. So if you want to stick a comment below, we'll talk about it. But I'll be back next time to look at the last pre-constructed deck from the Mirrodin set. But until then, thank you for watching, listening, and have a good day.